had cut away the excess cloth from the hole in his own suit, better to apply a sticky patch to seal it. Brack had shot him too, but Frank had survived. He held the scalpel carefully, remembering not to try to blow the dust off it, or worse, wipe it with his gloved fingers. It was still going to be extraordinarily sharp, and he needed to find a safe place for it. He inspected the blade, holding it up to his faceplate, and noticed the white pitting on the metal surface. There was something in the soil that had corroded the stainless steel. He carried it into the workshop's airlock. He was standing exactly where Zeus had died. Frank had thought he'd been responsible for that. Frank had been allowed to think that, in the same way he'd been allowed to think that Marcy's suit had failed, Alice had committed suicide, that Dee had been gassed by a malfunction. The inside of the hab was pumped up with pressurized Mars air so that it was somewhere that sparks could be made without risking instant immolation. People could work in there with just scuba gear and use their ungloved hands. The benches were still littered with parts for the putative steam turbine Zeus had been constructing, and further down, pieces of black glass where Declan had tried to fix the broken solar panels. For a moment he saw the other two men crouched over their work, then realized he was never going to see them alive again. "Sorry," he said. "We didn't do very well, did we? I mean, we did okay. We did okay, but we didn't look after each other like we should have. We should have worked out what Brack was doing sooner and stopped him. Would have been easier with more of us, too. Then I wouldn't be stuck here on my own, wondering what the hell I'm supposed to do next." Brack had killed everyone. He would have killed Frank, too, but Frank had found that he had something worth living for, worth fighting for, even worth faking his own death for, so he could strike Brack when he least expected, worth killing for. Frank had a son, Mike, back on Earth. Frank hadn't seen his boy for 10 years now? For 8 of those 10 years, he'd been in San Quentin, serving a cool 120 for second-degree murder. The last 2 had been spent training and traveling and building. Jackie, his mother, had taken him away after the trial, moved to the East Coast, and vanished along with him. Frank had killed a cop's son, and the blowback had been hard. The only contact he'd had with him since were divorce papers. He'd been content with the exchange until XO had come calling. He'd been sent to Mars by a corporation that had just happened to own both a prison and an aerospace outfit, in the company of a bunch of cons, murderers and narcos and perverts, and an overseer. Frank had believed he'd been promised a lift home if he'd towed the line, built Mars Base 1, and looked after it. He'd kept his end of the bargain. There was a fully functioning set of pressurized habs, with a greenhouse, med bay, crew quarters, kitchen, stores, power, light, water, air. What there wasn't anymore was a team of caretakers, or that ticket home. He cycled the workshop airlock, feeling his suit stretch around him as the CO2 was pumped back inside. He opened the door, and there was Mars. The first time he'd seen it, he'd been speechless. Now, it was just where he worked. He climbed down the steps and pulled Zero in line with Declan, and then went back for Brack. Brack had worked his way through the cons. Carefully at first, always making it look like there was another explanation, which had been easy enough because they weren't the most stable of people, and Mars punished inattention with almost instant death. But Brack had tripped up with Zeus. He could only have been murdered. Sure, Brack had convinced Frank that it had been one of the others, and Frank had been only too ready to take that on trust, what with his trip home dependent on Brack's good report. Frank took hold of Brack's parachute shroud and bounced him down the cross-hab steps. All the malevolence and malice in that wiry body had gone. It was just an empty husk now. Whatever had made Brack kill and kill again had flowed out with the blood on the base's floor.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.